In late March, international brands such as Nike, Adidas and H&M faced boycott calls in China. The reason? They took a stand against forced labor conditions in the country. China has been accused of forcing members of the mostly Muslim Uyghur minority to pick cotton in Xinjiang. The retail giants had expressed concern over this. In return, China started its hate politics. On social media, there was a call to boycott H&M and Nike products with the hashtag I support Xinjiang cotton being among the top trends on Weibo. H&M products disappeared overnight from major Chinese e-commerce platforms like Alibaba and JD.com. The boycott has extended to include brands like Burberry, Adidas and Converse, among others. More than 30 Chinese celebrities cancelled lucrative sponsorship contracts and brand partnerships with a number of foreign-owned clothing brands. This is a textbook example of China's bullying tactics. And then there is this. Hong Kong, and perhaps even China, won't be broadcasting the Oscars this year.
Best Documentary Short Subject. Here are the nominees. Do Not Split.
The cause is believed to be the nomination of Do Not Split, a short documentary on Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests, as well as the 4 nods for Chinese-born US director Chloe Zhao for Nomadland. China's Communist Party imposed a sweeping national security law in Hong Kong despite democracy protests in 2019. It changed the political dynamics of China with various countries. China is also concerned about Chloe Zhao's nominations. She is a Chinese filmmaker who is known primarily for her work in independent US films. While Asians around the world reacting with joy as she made history with Nomadland's success this award season, Chinese nationalists have pounced on her over comments she made years back that were perceived as being critical of China. This is China, a country where even peaceful dissent is crushed, however arbitrary it may be. As China struggles to save its image at home and abroad, we look at instances of Beijing's growing intolerance for dissent. This is the autonomous region of Xinjiang, the largest province-level division of China. Located in northwest of the country, neighboring with Central Asia, it produces about 1/5 of the world's cotton. It is also home to millions of China's Uyghurs, a Muslim minority that sees itself as culturally and ethnically close to Central Asian nations. They even have their own native language. The last few decades have seen the mass migration of Han Chinese to Xinjiang province. Han Chinese are the ethnic majority in the country. The Uyghurs feel that their way of life and their identity is under threat, and with good reason. Between 1 to 3 million Uyghurs are detained in concentration camps because of their ethnic identity. Reports of torture and sexual abuse have also emerged from this network of camps. And millions more are treated as slaves in factories across China. WION has been reporting on this issue from the very start.
Tonight we come to you with an old story. A story that we've been telling you for 4 years now, a story we've stuck to even when the world did not wish to discuss it. China's crimes in Xinjiang. The Chinese regime has literally given a license to Communist Party spies to sexually abuse Uyghur women.
However, as expected, China continues to deny these allegations and claims the camps are used for re-education as vocational training centers that help combat religious extremism.
We certainly know and knew going in that there are a number of areas where we are fundamentally at odds, including China's actions in Xinjiang.
In March this year, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the country will continue to speak out forcefully and shine a light on egregious violations of human rights by China. 3 years and a new president later, US and China remain locked in a bitter trade battle. The dispute has seen both the countries impose tariffs on one another's goods. And now Chinese residents are calling for a boycott of Sweden's H&M and some other foreign clothing retailers. On March 25th, a year-old statement from H&M on concerns about labor conditions in Xinjiang was thrown into the spotlight. The world's second biggest fashion retailer said it did not source products from the Chinese region. But why did this old statement resurface now? The attacks began when the party's youth league called attention to the statement from March 2020. The authorities opened the floodgates for people to slam the brand.
If they don't purchase cotton from Xinjiang, it's like excluding China. Then China, of course, can exclude them. This is very normal, tit for tat.
These actions by our country are very much correct. I've looked into these issues and I feel that certainly one has to support one's motherland.
Interestingly, at a daily media briefing at the Chinese Foreign Ministry, spokeswoman Hua Chunying, when asked about H&M, held up a photograph of black Americans picking cotton.
This is a picture from the US when black slaves were forced to pick cotton in the fields.
In another defense, China released a digital illustration to mock Western governments and businesses who are critical of labor conditions in Xinjiang. This viral image on Chinese social media reads, "Can you tell us what unfair treatment you have suffered, Miss Scarecrow?" The placard next to the scarecrow says, "I've been sexually assaulted and abused." Called Blood Cotton Initiative, the illustration also refers to the Better Cotton Initiative, an international group that promotes sustainable cotton production. And the letters HM have been carved on the tree trunk. But taking potshots like these cannot detract attention from what's unfolding in Xinjiang. The United Nations human rights experts have called for unhindered access to the country to conduct fact-finding missions. They are also urging global and domestic companies to closely scrutinize their supply chains. But this is not the first time international brands are facing the heat in China. This 4-year-old video shows a girl vandalizing Lotte Mart, a popular South Korean retail store in China. Lotte's business in China slumped after the company agreed to exchange land with the South Korean government for the deployment of the US missile shield system called Terminal High Altitude Area Defense in February 2017. The move triggered wide-ranging protests and a boycott from Chinese customers. Eventually, the chain decided to withdraw from the Chinese market. It's not too different from what's happening in China now. Beijing is again sending out the same message to international brands. Support China or leave the hugely profitable Chinese market. Chinese celebrities must toe the line too. 2 years ago, many of them were seen cutting ties with leading fashion brands. Givenchy, Coach, and Versace all came under fire for selling t-shirts that listed Hong Kong and Macau, China's special administrative regions, as autonomous countries. This show of patriotism towards China by celebrities is something the government demands. In China's film industry, the Communist Party is in the director's chair. Have you ever wondered who controls the internet in the People's Republic of China? You would not be able to Google this in China. Yes, the world's most popular search engine is blocked in the country. The Great Firewall of China is the Chinese government's internet censorship and surveillance project. It is one of the most controversial subjects in the world. The ban prevents companies like Facebook and Twitter from reaching the country's over 800 million internet users. Although users manage to find VPNs to circumvent the ban. The World Wide Web in China works on self-censorship mechanisms. The government mandates that companies be responsible for their public content. Some companies hire teams and invest in powerful artificial intelligence algorithms to police online content. During the onset of the COVID-19 outbreak, Chinese authorities tried to muzzle the truth. As the news of the Wuhan virus spread, thousands of messages of public outrage appeared on Chinese social media. They accused the government of covering up the outbreak. Dr. Li Wenliang too tried to raise awareness of early COVID-19 infections in Wuhan, but the whistleblower was silenced. He was summoned by the police for making false comments about the outbreak. The Braveheart died due to coronavirus complications in February 2020. More than 1 million users took to Sina Weibo to mourn his demise. But a majority of these posts were taken down. China's censorship is spreading beyond its borders. German publisher Carlsen Verlag has, at the behest of the Chinese embassy, had to take a children's book off the market because it implies a direct link between COVID-19 and China. This is Ma Jian, a Chinese-born British writer living a life of political exile away from his country. A vocal critic of China's communist regime, his novels are completely banned in China. In 2018, he wrote a book called China Dream, a phrase lifted directly from President Xi Jinping, who uses it to describe China's great rejuvenation into the world's sovereign superpower. But contrary to its name, the book delves into a pompous and corrupt government official, charged with replacing people's dreams with government propaganda via brain implants. His works have been banned in China for the last 30 years. In 2008, his novel Beijing Coma was also banned by China. It tells the story of the Tiananmen Square protests of 1989. Literary censorship has a long and colorful history in China, and some of it is rather surprising. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, the widely beloved British children's book by Lewis Carroll, was banned in China in 1931 on the grounds that animals should not use human language. To understand the censorship in China today, one must look into Mao's era. The Chinese government has been controlled by the Chinese Communist Party since 1949. The CCP has used two tools, censorship and propaganda, to control its people. This was to prevent any outside influence in communist China. But censorship in China has been intensifying under Xi. A directive from China's Ministry of Education last October called on elementary and middle schools to clear out books from their libraries, including illegal and inappropriate works. As schools reopen in China after the COVID-19 outbreak, teachers had to throw themselves into a nationwide exercise to remove books deemed politically incorrect. China also targets its own people. The CCP relies upon censorship to stay in power. It is also quashing the growing public influence held by its homegrown tech conglomerates. The high-profile collapse of Alibaba and Ant Group is a public humiliation for Jack Ma. Be it crackdowns on tech giants, businesses, books, films, or even people, boycotts and censorship are inherent attributes of the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping said that the Chinese dream is the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. But the big question is, can he achieve this dream by suppression and censorship? The truth is out there for the world to see.